question, all you cool cats and kittens. How do you feel about MMORPGs? Second question, how do you feel about Catgirls? If you answered yes to both these questions, or in a favorable thing, might I recommend the Y'Shtola Precon Commander Deck from the Final Fantasy set? It might be right up your alley. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Cunning Card Mage channel. Today we are going to be talking about the Y'Shtola Precon from the Final Fantasy set from last year. I know it's a year late, but it's one of those decks that I'm not the biggest fan of because it's not the most conducive to my playstyle, but I thought it would be fun to talk about this, especially after the bigger break than I would have preferred from content. And y'all always seem to enjoy these commander breakdowns. So, without further ado, let's talk about Y'Shtola Knights Blessed. So, starting off, let's talk about the commander herself. Y'Shtola Knights Blessed is a one colorless Esper, which is white, blue, black, 2/4 Vigilance Cat Warlock creature with the abilities of at the beginning of each instep, if a player lost 4 or more life this turn, you draw a card, and whenever you cast a non-creature spell with mana value 3 or greater, Y'Shtola deals 2 damage to each opponent and you gain 2 life. So the main goal of this deck is to be slinging a lot of spells and trying to ping as much as you possibly can. And because of that, it is a incredibly fun deck to try to play. It's just one of those that is a bit outside of my wheelhouse to an extent because I'm not the biggest fan of spell slinging decks and I'm trying to get a lot better at it. I do plan on trying to play this deck a bit more, especially with some of the upgrades I'm going to be suggesting later on in this video. The other commander you can choose to pilot is Graha Tia Scion Reborn, who is a Esper, white, blue, black, and a 2/3 with lifelink. With the ability, whenever you cast a non-creature spell, you may pay X life, where X is that spell's mana value, and if you do, create a 1/1 colorless hero creature token and put X 1/1 counters on it. Do it only once each turn. So obviously, that one's not as bad, but when you're going to be piloting this deck, more often than not, you're probably going to be running with the girl herself of Y'Shtola. Now, some of the cards that would be kind of decent to remove due to the fact of you're wanting to make sure you're doing spells that do cost 3 or more, non-creature spells that is, and also you're wanting to make sure that you can do a bit more with pinging, you want to get rid of some of the cheaper spells that might not be doing as much. Such spells as the Coveted Jewel, because all that's going to do is really make you more of a target. And while that could help with the first ability of being able to draw an extra card each turn, if you were swung at with more than one creature that totaled to 4 damage, it's probably not going to be as beneficial to have that in your deck. You might want to also get rid of Tome of Legends because, to a certain extent, that artifact isn't the absolute best in my humble opinion. Other spells you probably want to get rid of would be Bastions of Remembrance, Champions from Beyond, and then Hildebrand Manderville. Now, these are spells that are not terrible in their own right. I just think with this specific deck, you wouldn't want them in it because those spells would definitely fit a bit better for doing a Esper creature token deck, such as Marnie's Calgar, which is another deck that I'm wanting to make because, as has been mentioned with the Magnus video, I'm also kind of into Warhammer right now. I literally, on the other part of my desk off screen, I have a Night Lord that I'm currently working on, and I know that's not going to focus that well, but I really love Warhammer, and I've been slowly trying to collect as much of that as I possibly can by going to my LGSs and picking up cards that I don't have. But, that's besides the point. Another creature that I would remove to put into a different deck would probably be Ardbart, Warrior of Darkness. He is a one colorless white black 2/2 with some decent abilities that would actually not be terrible to run as a commander in his own right. In fact, at my local game store, I have faced a person running Aardbart as their commander because he's actually not terrible. I very much enjoy his abilities, but again, it's not as conducive to the Y'Shtola deck. Aardbart has the ability of whenever you cast a white spell, put a 1/1 counter on each legendary creature you control, they gain vigilance. And whenever you cast a black spell, put a 1/1 counter, and then those creature on each legendary creatures, and then they gain menace. So if you're doing a bunch of Orzhov, I think, future me, correct me if I'm wrong. White black is Orzhov. If you're casting a bunch of Orzhov spells, then you can just be able to buff up all your legendaries and give them vigilance and menace, which is not terrible to do. And then, last but not least, at the very, for the most part, we're going to remove probably, we'll say Torrential Gear Hulk, because it's a high cost spell and you do want to have a good chunk more of your non-creature spells due to the fact that that is the main thing Y'Shtola is kind of focusing on, is casting semi beefier non-creature spells, my bad, slipped up there. So cards that you might want to add would be Curiosity, to where you enchant a creature, and that creature, whenever it deals damage to an opponent, you can draw a card, so you can continue going through your deck. Adding in Ghostly Prison, because there's already propaganda in that deck, so that each time an opponent's trying to attack you, they have to pay at least 4 mana per creature if you have both out, and that will also trigger the Y'Shtola effect. It will never hurt to have more counterspells, such as Rewind, a 2 colorless, 2 blue counterspell that says counter target spells, untap up to 4 lands, because not only will you be a slight pain in the butt to your table mates, you'll also be then pinging them as you cast that spell. It also wouldn't be terrible to do Risky Shortcut from Aether Drift, which is a 2 colorless, 1 black that says draw 2 cards, each player loses 2 life. So a lot of what you're wanting to do with this deck is you're going to be pinging the absolute hell out of your opponents so that you can just constantly be getting more life, and on top of that, putting in the the Wind Crystal from the Final Fantasy deck, which is a 2 colors, 2 white legendary artifact that makes your white spells cheap, 1 colorless less to cast, and if you would gain life, you gain twice that much life instead. So each time you're able to then gain 4 life whenever you're casting a 3 or more, and on top of that, you put in Sanguine Bond for a 3 colorless, 2 blacks enchantment that whenever you gain life, target opponent loses that much life. So you're able to ping a lot. Now, obviously, one of the stipulations I want to make with precons and whenever you go about upgrading them. Whenever you're upgrading a precon, and I'm going to be doing this with the Fantastic Four precon, I will be making a video on that later down the line. One of the important things to do is running the precon as is a few times and figuring out yourself what are some of the cards you want to cut. Because yes, you can go to EDH Rec, which is where I'm looking for a lot of the cards to maybe cut and cards to add, but at the exact same time, you know your own playstyle better than a website does. So it's always important to keep in mind, like, you can look at specifically the tab on EDH Rec that tells you what to upgrade in your precon, or you can then go to like the commander and then look at the cards that it says have the most synergy. And I think that in and of itself wouldn't be the worst thing to do, solely because of the fact that instead of trying to base all of your upgrades solely on that, you can then be like, okay, so this works decently well, this isn't in the deck, so I'm going to add this into the deck. Because that is a huge part of playing Commander and that kind of thing, is not everyone is going to play decks the exact same. I think a lot of people might find the Y'Shtola deck to be really fun to play and pilot, but for me, it's just really far out of my wheelhouse of I like doing big stompy wide boards through my Gruul or Teamer And I love doing a bunch of combat damage without having to touch the stack as much as possible. But it is going to, be up to you on what you want to do. I very much do enjoy this deck. Granted, fun little story about this. If you are still watching, hey, thank you for continuing to watch and support a little bit. I got this deck because I went to Best Buy the day that this set proper came out, and the one deck I really wanted was the Cloud Strife deck because I felt it would be a really fun one. And fun little thing, I know, scatterbrained happens whenever you have ADD. I am going to be doing a new version of that video because I know I have the Cloud Strife video up on my channel already, but I think I could do it a bit better because, there's a lot of things. But I got this deck instead because I couldn't remember what was the deck I did want to get of the Final Fantasy ones that wasn't the Cloud one. And I realized after the fact it was going to be the Mardu one because the Mardu one with counters was far more in line with my not counters, more in line with my specific kind of playstyle. But live and learn. It happens. All in all, I think this is a pretty fun deck to try to pilot if you want to do some of the upgrades that I'm saying. Go ahead. It's not going to hurt, If it does make the deck pilot a little worse, then hey, you learned a lesson. You can remove those cards. That's the whole fun part of playing Magic outside of like the sealed format, and even then in the sealed format. As you play more and more, you get to figure out what your specific playstyle is and if specific cards in your deck are acting as more of a hindrance than you would have thought. But that's about all I really wanted to say whenever it comes to the Y'Shtola deck. And I very much appreciate y'all sticking around to the end. So, as always, if you want to see more of this kind of things, leave a comment down in the description. Let me know, did y'all get any of the Final Fantasy precons, and which of the precons were your favorite if you did? And leave a like if you enjoyed this kind of thing, and subscribe, hit the bell, because I am mildly inconsistent on when I post. But outside of that, that is about it. So, as always, I will see y'all in the next video. Bye!